Welcome to our webinar, Create Uncontested Space, Defend Your Customers from the Competition. Do you have uncontested space? The idea was popularized in the book Blue Ocean Strategy, where it's articulated we want the tranquil blue waters of uncontested space, limited competition, high profit margins. So do we have it, and how can the sales team help us create and maintain uncontested space? Well, you start with a market assessment. Here's a market assessment for IBM's mainframe business. You'll notice in the first column, we have market share assessments. And by the way, this is something you could get now from AI in 10 to 15 minutes. But what's really interesting is you can not only get it for big publicly traded companies like IBM, it's possible with much smaller companies, $5 million or less, to get a sense of what the market share estimated is. And also, where do you win? Where do you lose? So a starting point for this defensive assessment is to look at how you are in the marketplace. And if you don't have this, I can help you do this. So we're going to look at five defensive measures, what pure selling can do. Manage the relationship grid, secure testimonials, use wisdom, type 3 knowledge, selling technique to get to a defendable position, to confirm it, and the pre-mortem to avoid confirmation bias. There are over 150 best practices in urgency-based selling. You're going to get a passel of them in this short webinar. Now, it could be confusing at the starting point because we have a trusted advisor relationship of respect. We're the incumbent, and it's like we're on a tilted playing field where we're up here rolling the ball downfield and the competitor is kicking it up. Why do we have to bother? We're in a good place. Well, you know what the competition's doing? They're trying to level the playing field, and we have to protect against that. An example, the 40-year customer. I was working with a group of about 25 salespeople at a Fortune 200 company. And Jim really wasn't glomming onto the program. He didn't need to because he had relationships, including a 40-year customer with the firm. He had covered it for 10 years. Well, one day he came into a one-to-one coaching, seminar, homework, 2 weeks later, one-to-one coaching, 2 weeks later, seminar. So we're in a one-to-one coaching, and he comes in crestfallen. What's the matter, Jim? He said, I can't believe it. We've had the client for 40 years. I've covered it for 10 years. And last week, they tossed us out. We didn't even get a second shot. I said, oh, any idea what happened? He said, yeah, I found out later. A new decision maker came in 3 levels up and brought their own vendor with them. So our first idea is do a relationship assessment, a relationship grid with all of your key customers. So here you have 3 customers, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and 4 types of decision makers, CEO, COO, CFO, functional decision maker, and score all the relationships. Green is great, yellow is some, red is none. Now you'll notice, and this is very often the case, we have a great relationship with the day-to-day functional decision maker. But this could be the one, this red relationship, this could be the one that cost Jim that relationship. So what we need to do is look at our green relationships and ask them to help us meet the yellows and the reds and improve them and turn them into greens. Well, why should a green relationship do that? Because they want to do business with you. So a script could be, look, I think we want to do business. You like what we do. You want to keep on doing business with us. Let me tell you what happened recently. Well, we didn't meet the CEO. Somebody came in and swooped in and, new vendor came in. And this is very often a problem that the sales team is dealing with the lowest level decision maker, doesn't want to go around them for fear of ruining the relationship. Well, the competition has nothing to lose. They go right into the CEO and we lose it. Your best case is always to start at the top when you're starting a relationship and get referred down. But if you're starting with a situation where your key contact is lower down, you've got to rely on them and recruit them to help you get introduced. But how do you earn the right to CEO access? What are you going to discuss asks your contact. Got to address CEO issues. Oh, let's say your client is IBM. They want to know about their market share, or they want to compare it to their own data, where they win, where they lose. So this could be one way to justify a CEO conversation. Idea two, testimonial letters. Testimonial letters are a great selling tool, helps you deal with risk aversion, and also helps prospect understand why you have customers and what they love about you. It also supports consistency in a defensive position with your existing customers. In Cialdini's classic, The Psychology of Persuasion, Influence, there are 7 persuaders he discusses, and one of them is consistency. People like to be consistent with who they are, their identity. So if they write a testimonial letter for you, it's unlikely they're going to easily shift the business elsewhere unless something bad happens. So you ought to get testimonial letters from all of your customers. You can put them in the drawer, never use them. It's just a great defensive position. When do you get them? Ask for them in the magic moment of access. You're talking, you're visiting, and they're telling you they love you. We have a whole drill on how to get testimonial letters. Case history. So we have a customer who sells insurance products to car dealers, a very large car dealership group, 20% of our business. And we were squeaky clean in how we sold, but another vendor rather, was bribing the buyer. This was found out. The buyer was fired. A new buyer came in, and now everybody who was previously a vendor is tainted because we were doing business with the bad egg. And so the new buyer wants to get rid of all the vendors, including us. Fortunately, we had a testimonial letter from the owner of the group of companies that had been written a year or so earlier. And although he's hard to access and get in touch with, it saved the day and we didn't lose the customers. So testimonials are a great defensive strategy. Type 3 knowledge. There's 3 types of knowledge. Type 1 is what you know, type 2 is what you know you don't know, and type 3 is what you don't realize you don't know. Type 3 information is how we build a trusted advisor relationship. A key question to ask is, for every single call, what wisdom are you bringing? Well, why do you need to do that? Let me tell you about the 16-week sprint. I had a client who sold food ingredients to food manufacturers. We did a 16-week sprint. Every salesperson had 2 new key targets high up we had a contact. And for 16 weeks, we met every week. And if they hadn't had a breakthrough, we invented something new, mostly wisdom. Sometimes we send testimonials for 16 weeks. At the end of that period of time, we had opened up relationships high up, 70% or more. And we had some new business. Your competition is doing this. The defensive measure is you should bring wisdom to every meeting. An example of using wisdom to save customers. So our client does billing and collecting for martial arts studios. We have 2,000 clients, but we have a problem. We charge 2 times the low-cost provider. The buyers are saying, the owners are saying, we love you, but don't make me feel stupid. Just cut your price in half. Well, we can't do that. They love the product because, of course, we put more into it. Wisdom from return mail. Found a stack of return mail one day when I visited the office. What is this? Well, it's companies that went out of business. Ooh, thought question. How do we compare to the industry? We lose 5% of our customers a year going out of business. Industry standard is 30%. It's a risky business. So the bold vision statement that came out of the research is we help reduce bankruptcy risk 80%. That not only built a moat around our customers to reduce attrition, but it helped us increase our closing ratio for new prospects from 20 to 40%. Here's a case of using wisdom to break into a hotel where we're not the low-cost provider. So we're going after a pharma company. They buy about $30,000 to $40,000 of room nights a year in the market where we have our hotel. And what they're doing is they have salespeople who stay there who are calling on doctors. And the problem is our hotel room costs 50% more than the incumbent product. And the buyer said, a hotel is a hotel, a bed is a bed, you're all the same. And he makes mean, scary faces. So if the only important closing condition is price, we can't win. So we have to add a new condition through wisdom. We did our research and we found something that was material. So now we go back in, we call the buyer who says, a bed's a bed, you're all the same. But this time the saleswoman challenges the decision maker and says, I'm surprised to hear you say that. That's the boldness. That's business selling. I'm surprised to hear you say that. Well, the buyer said, what do you mean? It's all price. A bed's a bed. And now the salesperson says, well, what about a good night's sleep? Have you seen, and this was the type 3 knowledge, the article, Sleep Deficit is a Performance Killer, Harvard Business Review article. If you lose an hour of sleep, your performance, your productivity is off 10%. The buyer hadn't seen it, was interested, started a new engagement, and 6 days later, we won the business and held it against a lower cost product because we used wisdom. Idea 4, must-haves and defensive position. It's our job in selling to find out the must-haves. You say to a buyer, you mentioned on-time delivery is a must-have. Got it. What else is a must-have? Once you discover the must-haves or closing conditions, we got to ask the qualifying question, if we could satisfy these conditions, can we do business? So think about invisible glasses on a prospect's desk. Each one stands for a decision criteria. Our job in selling is to find them out, and then we fill them. We fill the glasses, we prove the case. So again, procedure. I have a sense that on-time delivery is a huge issue, a definite must-have. I got it. What else is a must-have? So now we have the closing conditions, but is it defendable? If I satisfy these conditions, can we do business? If the prospect says no, we have to add another condition with a what about statement. So let's look at a context. Let's say the conditions are too easy. The new buyer wants a new vendor, and we've identified the decisions that are important to them, but they're not going to do business because the new vendor that they want can do it. So we have to add another glass, a new condition. This works whether we're trying to protect our business or we're trying to break into a new account. This is one of the salesperson's most important jobs, is verifying that we have a defendable position. And again, we look at where we're strong, where we're weak against the competitor to determine which glass to put in there. Last new idea for defending your position. To avoid confirmation bias, which is malignant optimism. There are no's all around us, and we turn it into a yes. We learn from Tetlock and Gardner in super forecasting, use the premortem question. The question to ask is, why are we definitely going to lose this account? No, we're not. We own it. No, ask that question. It's a brainstormer. And if Jim had asked it with that 40-year customer, he would have realized there was a change afoot that we had to manage. So we find out the weak points and we address them. Recap. What pure selling can do. Manage the relationship grid. Secure testimonials because they won't want to change easily if they write one. Type 3 knowledge. Bring wisdom to every meeting. Selling technique. Make sure you have a defendable position or add a glass so there is one, and use the premortem, why will I lose this business? Over 150 best practices in urgency-based selling. Well, we know that Rome wasn't built in a day, so think about your takeaways, if any. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope to see you again in September for our next seminar on the Selling Vitality meeting.